Hello, welcome to Creativity Boost Podcast. Today is such a pleasure to have Brian on the show. Have you ever wondered if there was a way to go from concept to cash flow? What would life be like if you could take your concept and turn it into cash flow? What would your life be like if you could turn your ideas to increased income? What would your life be like if you could turn your creation to catastrophic success? Well, today I brought Brian Freed on the show. Brian Freed is a known inventor who has 15 patents to his name the last time I checked. I'm sure it may have increased now, and he's going to tell us all about that when he comes on to introduce himself. So, hello, Brian. How you doing? Do you want
I'm doing
to
great.
introduce yourself? Yeah, thank you. Do you want to reintroduce yourself for those who may just be meeting you for the first time?
Thank you. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Brian Freed, aka the Inventor Coach. I do have 15 issued patents. I still have a few patent pending, so maybe
Wow.
next time I'll tell you
I
there's
guess
more
as
than
much.
15. I have dozens of trademarks and copyrights, and I've been an inventor pretty much all my life, professionally 19 plus years now. I have 3 authored books. My latest one is How to Make Money with Your Invention Idea.
Wow.
I have been an on-air guest on QVC for 3 years. I host a podcast, radio show, TV show called Got Invention Show. There's an app for inventors that I launched a year and a half ago called the Inventor Smart Community app. I also founded the National Inventor Club. And I've been working with other inventors representing their inventions for potential licensing deals to earn royalties and manufacturing turnkey. So if somebody has an idea, I can guide them through all the steps that are needed to bring them to a point where they can manufacture their product and start their business. So just like you were starting the conversation here, a lot of times, Iradafi, people put their ideas in their head and you got to figure out what to do next with it. And that's the big hurdle, which listening to everybody's successes and challenges over the years, I feel like I'm a pretty good candidate to be able to help others at this point. And most of the time it starts off as a side hustle. People have their day jobs. They're kind of they came up with this idea. They're trying to figure out if it's something that can change their life. And sometimes it can, and sometimes you can do both and earn residual income, or you can earn enough to be able to make it your full-time job. So I'm happy to be on your show, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely, and that was such an awesome way to break the ice and to introduce yourself. And that brings me to my first question, because I've come to discover that millions of people are heading to the grave with their ideas sitting in their head, with their brain children unbirthed. Some even abort their brain children halfway and never give it expression. And that's the sole reason why I created this podcast, Creativity Boost, to help people who have an idea and don't know what to do with it, don't know how, why, where, or when to push it out for the world to experience and also to cash out from that idea or that concept. So, what do you think is the biggest mistake that most individuals make that causes them to not give their ideas and their concept, their $1 million ideas, the opportunity to gain expression in the world?
About an hour ago, I was on the phone with somebody that told me that they invented the Sony Walkman and didn't do anything with it and saw a portable stereo out there, and it was his idea. So I would say that one of the hardest things and really one of the most important things is that you come up with ideas all the time. For me, sometimes it's when things annoy me that I come up with an idea, or I'm watching somebody else do something and that kind of annoys me, and I try to figure out a better way, or maybe it's taking you 3 or 4 steps to do and maybe I can make it one. But that one step, I'm not going to have you clean and take it apart to make it 6 steps. I want to make it easier for you. So I think the most important thing, Iradafi, is really trying to capture your idea. because you'll come up with something and you'll get distracted in an instant. Somebody honks at you, somebody calls you, you get your name called, and poof, it's gone. So I think one of the biggest lessons is to capture the idea. Even if you think it's silly, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but capture it. And then a lot of times people skip over steps 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they start to work on their invention without doing a simple step of doing a patent search, or even before that, to go online and do a search to see what similar products are out there and figure out if yours is enough difference to make it so you can call your own. Or is it somebody else's invention? Is it out there already and it's pretty much the same thing, but I know you want to be a gazillionaire, but at the same time, it's not your invention. So move on to your next one. If you're in that mindset, if you're in that zone of coming up with ideas, then it's okay. You'll come up with the next one. I'm coming up with things all the time, but I'm not going to work on every one of them unless I know and I gauge and I test to see if it's something that I should put my time, energy, effort into. Otherwise, I just move on to my next idea. And sometimes they do work out and I continue and I could go through those steps along the way.
So you're saying that the main reason is because most people don't capture their ideas before they get distracted and forget it, right? So
Absolutely.
now, you also made mention of something. You said you always, take note of your ideas, you write them down, then you gauge to see if it's worth pursuing. And that brings me to my next question. How do you gauge? First of all, how do you come up with these ideas? Then how do you gauge if the ideas you've come up with is worth pursuing?
Well, think about all the things that you do during the day, right? When you're waking up, you're out of your bed, you're still in the bedroom, then you're in the bathroom, or maybe you're in the kitchen, maybe you're in your kid's room, maybe you're walking your dog, or you're taking public transportation, maybe you're in your car, you're on the highway, maybe you're on a side street. There's so many things that are happening in your life that as long as you're in that mindset of just being aware of things, like, are you just somebody that just kind of lets things pass by? Maybe I'm a little nuts, kind of stopping and saying, maybe that could be something different, or maybe why is that person doing that way all the time? So I think that's one of the main things, is to really capture it. And then, yes, write it down, send yourself a text message, whatever it is, but you got to capture it. Otherwise, poof, it's gone. And then to figure out if it's something to work on or not, the easiest thing these days to do, and I mean, I'm 51. I feel like when I'm saying this, it was like back in the day. But I mean, it's so easy these days to put in a descriptive words of your idea and go on to Google and put that in, for example, and click on images and look to see if there's similar type of things that already exist, right? It doesn't take much to do. Or go into the store that you envision your idea in. Is it something that's being sold? Have you ever really looked for it before? But especially when you're looking online and you're going through those images, are you going to close your eyes and say, oh my gosh, it's not out there? Am I going to the first row or the first page without doing some deeper research, maybe putting in some other descriptive words of how it comes, how you might be able to describe it, how it looks, how it functions, to see if there's something that already exists? Or do you not want to know? And then you're at step 6, 7, and 8, and you say, oh my gosh, I'm going to be a gazillionaire, but you didn't take the time to search and see if it's something that you can call your own. So are you going to work on somebody else's invention, or are you going to work on your own? So that's how I figure out, to start with, to gauge if my idea is something that I can call my own. So I start off with that, and then I got to figure out how I can bring this idea that's in my brain to life. So am I finding things that already exist and take them apart to make it close to what my idea is? Am I going to have an engineer or an industrial designer or an electrical engineer make me a CAD file, a computer file, to be able to take that and maybe make a prototype? Is my idea something fashion? So do I need maybe a seamstress to do a cut and sew job? Or is it wood, CNC, or metal, bending, or all these welding, or any of these things, to figure out how I can take what's in my brain and make it so it can be in front of me? I don't care how crude it is. I just want to know if it's something that I can see out of my brain in front of me. And then I want to try to get it as close to the real thing as possible, what I'm thinking about, but I have to make some decisions at that point. Is it something that is simple, or is it very complex? If it's too complex, then maybe I'll make like a 3D animated video. I'll have something kind of like cartoonish to be able to show it and just be able to explain it to people without going crazy and spending a ton of money on a prototype. But that's the thing. I want to visually put out what's in my brain to show you so I can have a better conversation.
Great. Now, many years ago, when I started out in my journey as a creativity coach and in my journey as a creative myself, I tried creating stuff, and my understanding at the time was that I didn't want to have something out there that someone had already done before. But as I began to learn, I began to experience different schools of thought. I've come across some schools of thought that actually say if you are coming up with something and there's nothing like it in the market, it may just be that nobody wants it, there's no market for it. And then they say if there's other products or there's other ideas that's already out there, it may just be an indication that that's something people are looking for. That's a hungry market. And this school of thought also suggests that you can take advantage of that market and find a segment in that market, find a sub niche in that market, and try to present that idea that you have. Now, I said all of that to bring me to my next question. When you have an idea and it looks like there's nothing like it out there, do you think it may be a pointer that you should have a rethink? That's number one. Now, the B part of that question is, when you have an idea and it looks like there's something like that in the market, does that mean you should quit and say, oh, someone has already done it? Or is that an opportunity for you to innovate and maybe improve on what's out there? What are your thoughts on these different perspectives?
That's going back to what I mentioned a little bit earlier, which I didn't really press at that point, but a patent search. So you're absolutely right. Sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, why isn't this thing out there? Maybe it was tested in the market and it didn't do well. Or maybe somebody had a patent on it and never commercialized it. And after 20 years, it's in the public domain, so anybody can make it. You remember the blanket with sleeves, the Snuggie? Right?
Yeah.
That was invented a long time ago. But
Wow.
just, I mean, it's not just recent, but when you heard the Snuggie come out, that was something that was somebody else's invention a long time ago, and they put a new name to it. So after it becomes public domain, you can kind of press it for yourself also if you want. You can modify it. Can you get a patent? Probably not. But you most likely will be, or maybe you could get a design patent, but realistically, the functionality, probably not, because it's already in the public. So I think that that patent search is really important. What that does is that compares what my idea is right now to what's already existing in the market in the patent library. And I like to look at the claims. So it's like the metes and bounds of property to compare what you're claiming or you want to claim to what's already existing to figure out if it's something that you should work on or not, or if it's somebody else's intellectual property. So I think that step, Iridafi, is really important. And that can kind of validate to me if I have a shot at calling this my own. Because if I do that, then I know that if I can get a patent, and patent's it doesn't always have to be that way, but if I know that I can get a patent, then I can have a competitive advantage in the market for the next 20 years with a utility patent, with a design patent 15 years. And then I have some other options. So you heard me in the beginning talk about licensing to earn royalties. So most of the time, if I'm going to a company that has a similar product in the market compared to what I'm coming up with, I can go to them and see if they're interested in adding my product to their product line. They could manufacture it, they could distribute it, and I can earn a royalty from it. Or maybe I want to manufacture it myself, and I have that competitive advantage for all that time, for the 20 years, to be able to call it my own, and nobody can make it. Sure, maybe there's a copycat or two out there, but because I have a patent, I have a way to be able to take them down. Just like when I'm on Amazon and I have a product that's selling on there and somebody copies it, I can show Amazon's back end that it's my patent, and they take them down going through that process. So that's kind of the situation, is to figure out if there's an opportunity to protect it. Now, if you don't want to protect it, that's fine. Maybe you can't get a patent because it's somebody else's patent that was 20 years old and it's in the public domain. So I could still make it and sell it, but so can you. And so can your next door neighbor, right? So then it's going to turn into, like you see on Amazon these days, right? You could go on, you could look at a product, and the same product is selling for $5. Somebody else is selling it for 10, another one's selling it for 20, the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's, people can sell the same thing, but that's why I like, if I have a chance to get a patent, I do.
Great. Now, what you just described is what most business schools and business institutions refer to as commoditization, when your idea has become like a commodity, and so you have to compete on price to get your product bought or to make money from your product. And I think this is one big challenge that many creatives face. And that leads me to my next question, which is around making money from your idea. A lot of people have, manifested their creativity, created something. They've come up with an idea and they've turned that idea to something tangible, but it has turned to just an artifact on their shelf. Nobody wants it, and they're not making money from it. We have many creative people who have actually deployed their creativity by going from idea to product, but they've not been able to go from product to profit. And that's why I brought you on the show specifically, so that we can talk about how to go from concept to cash flow. Now, Brian, you wrote a book titled How to Make Money from Your Invention Idea. And so I believe that you have a thing or two or more to say about this situation. So I want you to just take the mic and unpack this problem and provide a couple of solutions for our listeners.
It's interesting because as you were talking there, I was thinking somebody can have a really good invention and it doesn't sell. It doesn't always have to be bad that, it's just because it's not like sometimes people just don't know about it, right? You can be a good product developer, inventor, bring a product to life. But if nobody knows about it, then what's the difference, right? It'll just sit in your garage. So let me show you one that's bringing what you're saying to mind. So this one is a collapsible egg tray. So you put your eggs in, and as you take your eggs out, it goes back until there's that much space. Now, everybody loves when they see this, and I appreciate that. It's a good kind of novelty item, but it's very useful and functional, right? Yeah. I have a utility patent on this.
Wow.
But here's the thing. When you're going on Amazon, for example, are you going on Amazon to look for a collapsible egg tray? Would you even know that a collapsible egg tray exists? You'll probably put in egg tray, egg holder, right? Yeah. Those type of things. So how do I sell this, right? How do I sell it? Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. When somebody puts in, you're looking for an egg tray, you may consider this. And I got to pay for you to look at it. Now, how much am I going to pay until I end up getting a sale? So that's the technique you have to figure out with how much are you going to put in advertising dollars to how much profit margin you have to be able to make sure that when you're selling these things that you're going to make money and at least make something. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. All that work to get to this point with no profit margin. So I know a lot of inventors and people that even not even inventors that are people who have product and selling, and they have such slim margins. By the time they're done, they're losing money or they're breaking even barely. Okay. So I'm just giving you that example. And the same thing, like this one is kind of interesting. This is one of my latest inventions. So usually when your hands are wet or dirty, you're putting it on top of a paper towel roll, and it looks something like this. This is a little exaggerated, but when I first came up with this idea, I asked my friends and family to take pictures of their top of their paper towel roll, and it looked disgusting. And why? When you're making, dinner, you have wet hands, one on top, one ripped the sheet off. Yeah. So what I did was I came up with this cap that goes into the inner tube of any paper towel roll. So now when your hands are wet or dirty, it stays on top and it keeps it clean and dry. And I heard also that it keeps the paper towel together also. It's not all over the place. It keeps it tight. So this product is simple, not rocket science. I have a patent on this, and it's selling on Amazon. And the same thing, I'm capturing people when they're looking for paper towel holders, rolls, paper towels themselves, and then people are seeing it and they're intrigued by it. But then there's a point also where people are starting to say, hey, I bought one, and somebody's over their house and go, where'd you get that? Oh, well, it looks like I could, I bought it on Amazon. Let me send you the link. And then you get influencers that are looking for under $10 items and they pick it up and all of a sudden it goes viral. So
wow,
it's fun. It's fun. There's ways to get your idea out there. And like I said, sometimes people aren't aware of the kind of the fork in the road of licensing to earn royalties or to manufacture. You don't always have to manufacture and come up with an idea and start to manufacture and expect to spend money for tooling and production and having inventory and all that. You can also take the other route of licensing to earn royalties. So there's those type of ways to make money. But before you do that, you want to be able to at least have your ducks in a row where it's, okay, I did my patent search, I have a prototype, I did my own research, I'm filing at least to have a provisional patent application filed, which will give you the right for 1 year to say that you're patent pending while you're exploring the market. Or maybe I filed the design patent, which kind of puts you in the patent pending stage at that point. And then I'm going to be able to show my idea. Sometimes these companies are okay with showing a product or your idea when you're patent pending. Sometimes they say, Brian, come back when you have an issued patent, right? Or sometimes they say, we're not interested in outside type of submissions. You're on your own. So you can go to these companies and see if they're interested in adding your product to their product line. On the other side, Iridafi, I could say that there's a lot of people that come to me and say, Brian, let's try the licensing. It may not necessarily work out. It's got to fit that. It's not only the idea that they have to love. Their marketing team has to get on board and do all the graphics and everything else. Then they have to show their sales team, and their sales team has to be on board. The investment of the tooling and everything else. So there's a lot. And even though they might love the idea, they might say, no, I'm not interested. And it doesn't mean that you stink or your product stinks. It just means that it's not the right time for them. Or maybe they have a full pipeline. Or maybe you caught somebody on a bad day that they don't care what you show them, even though they loved it. And it could have been the biggest winner for them, but they just said no. So then maybe you can try to manufacture it. And a lot of times people think that it's much more than it is. And maybe it is sometimes, but most of the time it's not when people are approaching me. So really quick story. An inventor came to me. We tried to license. It didn't work out. And then she was like, you know what? I don't know what else to do. I'm like, well, why don't you manufacture it? I don't have the money to do that. Well, how much is it? I don't know. Well, take a guess. You told me you don't have the money, right? Maybe it's $20,000 for the mold and $3 to $4 per unit. I said, okay, well, let's get some pricing. So I got pricing. It was $800 for the mold, $600 for the mold, $800. I'm sorry, $600 for the mold, 80 cents per unit.
Wow.
Oh, but I have to make 100,000 units for that price. 3,000 unit minimum. 3,000 units times 80 cents is what? $2,400? The mold was $600. $3,000, right? To make 3,000 units.
Yeah.
Okay? She sold 3,000. She sold the 3,000. Sold another 3,000.
Wow.
5,000. 5,000. And she's in her own business. And she can build a brand around it too. So you can bring other products that are related to what you have. They don't all have to be invention, but when somebody's coming to yours, they could see the other products that are being sold that could be commodity type, but they're already on your site and they'll buy it.
Yeah.
Or your store. So that's the way to kind of monetize and figure things out. But you don't know until you ask and get a quote, just like anything else.
True. And you said some really powerful things there, because when I started out in my journey, I thought the goal of creating was to create. And I've come to discover that creating alone cannot get you, into cash flow. You have to create, you have to connect with people for whom you're creating, and that's where marketing comes. And then you have to contribute. You have to show them that you're adding value to them. And many creatives, they excel at creating, but they suck at connecting. So they want to create the best product, and when they create the best product, they are wondering, why ain't I famous yet? Why ain't I rich yet? Where are my buyers? Where are they? They don't know you exist, like you said, right? And that took me a while to learn, right? I learned that the hard way after creating several products and not seeing any traction. I came to understand that nobody cares how good you are, and it's not the best product that actually sells. It's the product that's best known that actually, the best sold. So as much as a lot of effort needs to be put into creating something good, something solid, double the effort, if not quadruple the effort, has to be put into talking about it, into promoting it, into marketing it. And when we talk about marketing, many people think we're talking about just advertising, but I've come to learn also in my journey that marketing was completely different from advertising, and that's a conversation for another day. But back to what we were talking about, you made some really, really great points, and I want us to piggyback off that. So now that you've talked about the importance of marketing, we've talked about how that sometimes it's just a perception that makes people feel like they shouldn't proceed with their idea. And so when big companies reject them, they shut it down. In fact, I have a story of someone who had an idea. He had reached out to 50 different companies for partnership, for API partnership, and they had turned him down, and he had planned to bury the idea, bury the project, until he met me, and I was like, hey, you can actually use this idea to make this thing work. And he used this idea without needing a company, and he started generating massive cash flow monthly from that idea. What do you have to say to people who are currently in a state of discouragement? They are discouraged because nobody cares about their idea, or they don't have money to fund it, like you said. I know you've shared a story about it, but now I want us to extract some, practical steps from all these stories that we've all seen around town. What can you say?
I got my own.
Okay, yes.
In fact, I got my own.
By telling us your own, and then speak to someone on the other side who is discouraged right now. Tell us about that down moment you had and how you picked yourself back up. Someone listening to you right now needs to pick himself or herself back up. So, yeah, let's hear you.
There's plenty of brick walls that you hit. So are you continuing to do the same thing over and over and over again? Or are you going to try something different? So a lot of times people come to me and they're doing the same thing for a year or whatever, 3 months. And I look at things from a different perspective. And instead of hitting that wall head on every time, I just looked a little bit to the side and gave them a new outlook on how to get around that wall.
Wow.
I had a certain, I had several products that people said no to me. And I changed the way that I pitched it. I changed the purpose. A lot of times also when people are coming up with ideas, and let's say you come up with something for people with disability. Okay. I love that. I very much appreciate that you're coming up with it for disability. But when I look at it, I can see sometimes that you can make it for everybody, for mass market. So a lot of times people put themselves into this window of opportunity, like here, but what if it could be for this and for this and for this, right? Maybe you made it for one particular niche, but now you can open it up to other things. So a lot of people are stuck in this, Iridafi. They're here. And yes, there's opportunity and there's business here, but how much better is it here? So like when I went on QVC, this is a product called Pull Ties, okay? It was originally, I invented it because I got annoyed with bread bags with the twist ties and the chip clips and the plastic tabs that are on it, right?
Yep.
So the plastic tabs and the twist ties, those annoyed me. I couldn't close the bread. So I was like, you know what? I can make this for bread and pitch you to buy this for bread. Do you like bread? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe the next person does, they don't. But I said, what else can I use this? The plastic bag for the bread, but I can use it for cereal, right? Cereal bags, freezer bags. I went into your pantry. You can use it for your pet food, right? So you take any plastic bag, cereal bag, freezer bag, right? You put it through the loop, you push the button, you pull it up, and it seals it tight. But what I did, and the point I'm making, is I went from here to here. And when I pitched it, I said, how many people have a kitchen? You understand? So people put themselves in this.
Yeah.
And yes, you hear people say, no, 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 no. All right, that's one scenario. But the no, 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 no. Listen to people. Ask them for feedback, okay? Ask them to be brutally honest. Not pat you on the back and say, yeah, I would buy that. And they really wouldn't, right? Because they don't want to hurt your feelings. And you have to see them again. And you're going to be upset with them every time you see them because they BS'd you the first time, right? So you want to be able to get the right answers from people. So you could do online focus groups. You can have people sign a non-disclosure agreement if you're not protected yet. But listen to people's opinions and feedback. I'm 51 now. I think I mentioned that earlier. I don't know if I'm proud but the point I'm making there is that I'm just going back to take my master's degree in business administration because I want to teach innovation, entrepreneurship, invention. And my class that I'm taking right now is called Design Thinking.
Wow.
And it's really getting into people's brains and thinking about why people would buy something or they wouldn't. You need to do that. I know you're passionate about your idea and your business idea, your product idea, but you have to separate your emotion from the business side, right? Because if you're going to put your time, money, energy, effort into this idea or the business, then you got to put the emotion aside and listen to what people are saying to make a better business decision. And that's sometimes challenging, but it's important for you to overcome those obstacles. And on the other side, it's persistence. You said you had somebody that came to you 50 no's. I had more than that, but I kept going and I tried different categories of a particular type of intellect. So I had trademarks, and I came up with these acronyms and emoticons that the kids were using back in the day, right? TTLOL and SUP and all that. So what I did was I trademarked them outside of computers and cell phones for backpacks, bags, T-shirts, stationery, all these things, right? So I kept trying a few of the categories, and no. Then I found one that somebody said yes, and then my product line of my clothing was in Target, Walmart, Sears, Great Tiger, Zellers, all these different stores. And then I was able to kind of roll through that. So I had some success there by just, again, that lesson of keep hitting the brick wall or look at it from a different perspective. And if you can't see it from a different perspective, then ask somebody else who can.
Amazing. And that is so, so fundamental. Like, I think that's why we need to, have people that we can talk to, have coaches, have mentors. And if you're listening to this and you have an idea, you like to talk to someone, I think you can connect with Brian. I'm going to drop some links.
Absolutely.
I'm going to drop some of his links in the show notes. You can also reach out to me if you feel like you resonate with what I share. But that brings me to the next question that I was going to ask about marketing. I want us to go back to marketing a little bit, because you mentioned something about how you pitched a product that you had initially pitched differently, and just by changing and switching the pitch, switching the messaging, you experience catastrophic success. You experience, massive success. So are there any things that you can share with us that can help improve our messaging for our product? Because what we are talking about is not just limited to, you're inventing a scientific product, or you're inventing a product that has some functionality. It could be a song that you're trying to create. It could be a book you're trying to write. It could be everything. It cuts across every form of creation. It could be an invention like we have already talked about. So regardless of the kind of creative you are, I feel like this is something that will be very useful. So, Brian, do you want to talk about the pitching, the messaging, and things that we can, put into consideration when crafting our messaging for our product and our creations?
Somebody pitched me the other day, and they started off their pitch, and they put me in such a depressed state that I didn't even listen to anything else that they were saying. Because when you put somebody in that state, you're just kind of putting them in a bad mood, and it doesn't matter what else they say, they're just not going to pay attention, or they're going to listen. So I feel like you got to do something to wow somebody in the beginning, catch their attention. I understand if you want to do something kind of like, some kind of emotional, like, what's the problem, right? And what's the solution? And tell me how it works, and tell me what it can do to benefit me. This way I know that I could buy it. But there's so many people that pitch me and show me things that it's just too long. Till they get to the point, takes a long time. So what I would say is, show me what it is that you have. Show me what the problem is. Tell me what the benefits are that are going to really make it so it's worthwhile for me. What's in it for me? Why should I listen? So if I just went on for the bread for this, maybe you would continue to listen, maybe you wouldn't. But if I found something that you can relate to, whether it was bread, cereal, freezer bags, all these different things, then I'm going to pique your interest. So you got to find something that's going to catch my attention and get right to the point. Somebody showed me a pitch deck the other day. It had all words on it, no visuals. People are visual. And if you're not in that position, then paint a picture for somebody in their head to understand what it is that you're trying to explain. But there's no better kind of presentation than a visual version of what it is that you're talking about, to be able to let people relate to it that way, and let the pictures and the visuals speak for themselves. But I think that it's really important for people to say, give me the problem, give me the solution, give me the benefits, show me how it can be beneficial to me, what's in it for me, and get right to the point. There's too much kind of noise. Get rid of the noise and get right to the point, especially if you want to sell. These days, Iradafi, people don't have patience.
Yeah.
They have very short attention spans, and you got to be able to get the answers and pique their interest immediately. Otherwise, they're gone.
Yeah, true. And to your point, what I've observed is one of the big drawbacks to many creators, many individuals, many creatives, many inventors, is that they talk about themselves when they're trying to pitch something. They talk about their degrees, their certificates, how many years they spent building the product. And for what it's worth, the person doesn't care, the market doesn't care, the client doesn't care. They don't care about your degrees, they don't care about how many years you've read, or how many years you spent writing the book, or how many years you spent creating the song, or how many years you spent inventing the product. They only care about themselves and their problems. And so you want to be able to help them see themselves in the state they would rather be, using your solution and not experiencing the pain they are currently in. You want to help them amplify the pain, agitate the pain, and provide your solution as quick as possible without talking about your degrees, your PhDs, talking about your years of experience, talking about, oh, we've been in business since 1962, this is my business card. All of those are wonderful things to have, but always try to get to the point. And I think that is really phenomenal. Now, Brian, I want us to get into like the final lap of our conversation, and I want anyone who has listened to us to this point, I believe they're still looking for something more, and I want that to be like the big one, like the climax of our conversation. So how can, if you were to give an advice to someone and the person wants to go from concept to cash flow, what would be your advice? Like, what practical steps can the person take to go from concept to cash flow? The person has a bright idea, but the person wants to turn his creativity to profitability. What would be your advice to that person?
Be real. Figure out if it's something that's yours. Try to have that competitive advantage. Ask people for help. I think that's really important. I respect people trying to do things on their own. And you can. And I tend to do that too. I've been trying to fix a couple things in my house. And I could do it. It'll take me a long time to do it. And maybe I'll make a few mistakes along the way. And they might not be that expensive. But sometimes they could be. Right? Yeah. So do I figure it out myself, or do I get a specialist? Do I get somebody that understands? God forbid something happens and you need to go to the doctor. Do you go to anybody, or do you go to a specialist? No, right? Yeah. You want to be able to try to get to the source of what you need to accomplish as quick as possible, and not have to make the same mistakes that a lot of other people do. Spend a lot of time, money, energy, and effort when somebody could potentially have the answer for them. You just have to do your research, do your due diligence. You got to ask people for referrals, find out who else they've helped, see their work, right? Yeah. Somebody came to one of my meetings one time and they said, oh, I help inventors and I can get your product and I have all these things, right? And we all went, okay, well, where's the product right now that we can go and buy from anything that you've done so far? Well, I have this one and I have that. No. I'll fly anywhere in the country. Show me the product that you have somewhere that I could buy before you telling me that you can help me. Nothing. Okay? So the point is that do your due diligence. I know it's exciting, but when you do construction on your house, you probably get a couple quotes, right? Somebody tells you, I'm going to make your house beautiful and amazing, right? And I'm going to charge you X. You're emotional, like, oh my gosh, you have such a beautiful house, right? We're going to improve. So are you working off your emotion, or are you making a good business decision? Are you going to get multiple quotes and figure out who's giving me what, looking at it from on paper and fact rather than from here, right? So I think that a lot of people kind of follow this, which I respect, and I think it's very important. At the same time, when you're starting to work on an idea, it's a business. Yeah. And you have to look at it from that perspective. You're going to be putting in time, money, energy, effort. You're going to be doing research and development. You're going to be dedicating and sacrificing your time. And what's the return? Because if there's no return or little return, or I'm not going to see a return, then I have other things to do. So you have to be real. Just like I started this kind of sentence, you got to be real to yourself and make better decisions. And if you have a hard time making those decisions, then ask somebody for help to make those better decisions. Because somebody can say that, oh, I got a $5,000 quote, and then I know somebody who could do the same thing for $300. So don't you have better things to do with your money? You know what I mean? And also, when you're seeing things that already exist, it's okay to stop and wait for the next one. Or if you're not getting great feedback because you need to reiterate and do another version of it, then think about what people are saying. I know that it's exciting and you know you have the answer. I respect that. But if you're getting enough times that people are kind of saying the same thing, listen to them.
Yeah. True. Thank you so much for that, Brian. I think this is a great place to call it for today. I think you have done a very great job in
Thank you.
unpacking the idea
You got me all
behind
fired
the
up here.
conversation. Yeah, amped up and ramped up. Yeah. So thank you so much for coming. I believe you on the on the other side or on the listening side, I believe you found value. I believe that this was a very good conversation to listen to, and I believe you picked a thing or two from listening to today's episode. If that's the case, and I believe it is, I encourage you to talk to someone about it, share this with a family or a friend, and help us get the word out there. Help us stop those people who are heading for the grave in droves with their ideas, $1 million ideas sitting on their heads by sharing this episode. I'll see you on our next episode. Thank you, Brian, for coming. Till our next one, have a good one and bye bye.
Thank you very much.